Yeah, so a lot of my work over the last 2 years at POPVOX Foundation has been focusing on how legislative institutions can start using generative AI. The biggest tip for learning how to use these tools is to use them. Honeybees will only sting you if you really deserve it. But if you have one right in front of you, if you put your finger down in front of the honeybee, it will crawl on your finger and you can just kind of pass it hand to hand, or you can be in bee suits, drinking coffee, talking about Congress with twins running around, and we can have a beer on the side.
Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of Capital Spotlight. Today we are here with Aubrey Wilson, Director of Government Innovation at POPVOX Foundation. I got it right in the time beforehand when we were prepping, but now I messed it up. I'm sorry.
Innovation, government innovation. I mean, it all hits the same core. But I'm super excited to be here. So thanks for having me.
Well, sorry, I messed it up right to start. But okay, cool. So first off, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? How'd you get to DC?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm originally from Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and grew up in a family that was always really big on public service. They always told us to do something where you'd also would always have a job. And so I have an older sister who went in healthcare, a younger brother that went into mechanics, and I went into government reform.
Cool.
And went to college at Hillsdale College, so went east to Michigan for that, and then just kept moving east from there. And so right after college, got an internship in DC, literally the Monday after graduation.
Nice.
Packed the car, drove here, was planning on maybe being here a couple years, and it's now pushing 11 years later, and I'm still here, and I'm addicted. It's like a black hole. It just keeps pulling you in.
Yeah, it's like people either say, okay, I'm going to leave after 2 years and actually do, or they're just here forever.
Yep, I completely agree with that. I mean, once again, I don't know if I'll be here forever, but I'm sure 30 years from now we'll have another conversation. I'll still be here.
For sure. What's your okay, if I could go anywhere after this, where are you going?
Oh, that's such a good question. I think that I have multiple personalities in that sense. There's always a part of me that wants to move back to Idaho because the people are so nice. You can't fly back to Coeur d'Alene on one flight. You have to take a connection. And I laugh because without fail, that first flight is from DC to Chicago, and nobody talks on that flight. Everyone's kind of mean and quiet. And then you hop on that connection flight from Chicago to Spokane, Washington, and the person next to you is like, "Oh my gosh, what do you do? It's so great to meet you." And it's just everyone's so friendly. It's those West Coast vibes. And so moving back to the West Coast at some point, I think it's something that I would love. But I like the efficiency over here. I like the feel of the city. I'm just such a doer, and there's always something to do here. And so I'm sure at some place in time I'll find a combination of those things. But yeah, right now at this stage, I am super happy here. Yeah.
All right, good stuff. So tell us a little bit about your background here outside of work. We'll get into plenty of work, but you're a mother of two twins.
That's right.
So tell us about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So so my husband and I, we welcomed twin girls. They're identical in October of 24, and so they're just rounding out almost a year. I mean, it's been a whirlwind. Twins don't run in our family, and so it was a little bit of a surprise. I think that, when you find out that you're pregnant, you're so excited, and you kind of close your eyes and you imagine what your family looks like, and it's like you holding a baby, right? And then you go to the doctor, and the nurse comes in and goes, "Congratulations, there's 2 of them in you." And you're kind of like, oh my gosh. And not only that, but you kind of close your eyes, and in a heartbeat, all of your mental images of your family changes, which is insane. And now I truly can't imagine only having one. My husband also laughs all the time because I'm such a baby snuggler that he's like, thank goodness that we have 2, because otherwise I would never get a hold of baby. And so, having the 2 of them has been wild. They just started sleeping, which has been life-changing.
It really is.
But yeah, I think having the like you said, the life that's completely separate from your professional life, that is just so fulfilling and busy and full, has just been the most incredible experience. I think people in DC get so sucked into their careers, and that was absolutely me, 100%. And I love obviously dating my husband and marrying my husband and our life together, just the 2 of us with our dog. But having kids is just a whole nother chapter that once again is just so fulfilling. So it's been a really good time.
A few questions there. First, how do you hold both girls at once? Are you hip and hip, or how does it go?
It's changed over time as they've gotten heavier. They're both about 20, 25 pounds right now, and so it's a lot of baby.
Yep.
But yeah, to start out, it was definitely double football hold. It's what the nurses called it. Yeah, and then now it's kind of like double hip hold. Sometimes it's like over the shoulder with one and holding the other one like this. I want to give like a huge shout out to Costco because they are the only place we've been that has a double cart where two twins can sit. And I just like want to encourage every other supermarket out there to just take pity on twin parents and have a cart with 2 spots for children, because when I go to like a normal grocery store, the holding is like 1 in a carrier and 1 in the cart, and like the checkout line is a disaster. I mean, there's just kids everywhere. So yeah, it's there's a lot of baby balancing going on.
Yeah, I can imagine. That's so Costco to like everything's bigger, including the carts and kid area.
Also, people are so nice at Costco. I mean, like we're up in Maryland. And I love taking the kids to Costco because it's also like social hour. We have so many people of like every age range and background come up to us and they're like, oh my gosh, twins. And they like get right in their faces. And one of our twins is like Miss Stranger Danger, like really like just shy. And the other one is super outgoing. Yeah. And without fail, the stranger always goes up to Maeve, which is the Stranger Danger baby, and is like, and she just starts crying, where the other one is like, oh my gosh, it's so great to meet you. And so yeah, it's Costco's great for socializing babies as well.
Love that. Oh man, I forget my other questions now. Okay, but like, how do you? So obviously, life changes so quickly with parenthood.
Yeah.
How have you been able to balance work and life since then? Like, how's your work schedule changed? Like, how are you handling all that?
I wouldn't say that there's anything resembling balance at all. I'm super thankful to work for a place that like really understands that this is now a huge part of my life and recognizes us as a whole person, and just like shout out to the POPVOX Foundation for that, because I think there's a lot of realizing that when you have the ability to like invest in your family, invest in the things that are causing you stress outside of work, that it helps you become a better worker at the same time, right? And so my over the last 9.5 months, the work-life balance has definitely shifted one direction or the other depending on what's going on. I think really early on we realized that we needed help. It's just too much. You can't do it all, and there's no like buy one get one free for daycare for twins, unfortunately. Weird. And so we actually were blessed enough to be able to bring in like a nanny who comes in Monday through Friday, and I still work from home.
Nice.
But having that person who like I can hear them in the next room playing and having fun and laughing, but I'm able to like really wholly concentrate on work, so that when she's gone, I can wholly concentrate on the kids. Yeah. That ability to like fully concentrate and give my whole self to one task and then the other versus half doing both of them makes it so I can really show up in both. And I think that having that divide and that concentration has also been just really rejuvenating for me. It's nice to put the mom hat aside for a second, and I'm so blessed that I get the ability to do that. But then also, I get to be mom. And so like my favorite, work-life balance practice that I do is actually my lunch break is just playing with the kids because I give the nanny the lunch break at that time. And so I get to go through my day knowing I have a couple hours in the morning, and then I get to like play with my kids again, and then I get to go back to work for a couple hours. And so that's been probably the biggest part. But I mean, shout out to all parents out there. Like, I think every week has new challenges. And even like, a couple weeks ago, I was on a meeting in the morning. It started right at 9 o'clock. My nanny had issues getting on like a metro shutdown issue, so she wasn't going to be in for like an hour late, and like I logged on to my international meeting with international partners with like 2 bouncing babies on my lap, and I was like, this is how we're doing it this morning, folks. And I was so worried about it being inconvenient, but there was another option. And honestly, like it ended up being like the best part of the call. Like people made the comment of like, oh my gosh, it's like this made my whole morning. And I think that I think there's a lot of joy in like people seeing people working to figure it out, and like an appreciation for who you are outside of work.
Absolutely. And like people are super chill with kids for the most part, you know, unless they're going absolutely insane on the call, and then
that's what the mute button is for.
Yeah,
so
there you go.
It's fine.
Yeah, I've been there.
100%.
But yeah, it's like, why not surprise someone with a baby,
Yeah, and I mean they're cute. I mean, I'm biased, but like I think they're cute, and so yeah, I think it was like a good lesson for me too. Of like, hey, sometimes like you have to make it work, and like I said, I have a boss that's super understanding with that. Cool. And yeah, I mean, like I said, every week is a challenge, but we're figuring it out as we go.
So definitely, I'm so interested in your job title and what you're actually doing there. But first, talk a little bit more about personal. Tell us about your hobbies outside of work. We'll start with beekeeping because that's just like too cool. So please fill us in.
Yeah, that's a good question. So in Idaho, I I grew up on kind of like a small hobby farm, and my parents, every like season, they would try something new. And so one year we got goats, one year we got a donkey, we did chickens, we did ducks, we had bunnies, we did like an orchard, berries, kind of things. Well, one year we did bees, and I fell in love with it. Like, I think that like having a couple hives, it's like yoga. It's like one of the most like mindful things you can do, and bees are incredible. And I just like became addicted. Like, I'm a huge honeybee fan. My friends laugh at me because like if we're out at like a brewery or something and a honeybee lands, like I'll play with it, and, like pick it up. And bees are super nice. Honeybees are super nice. The other bees are assholes. Yeah, so when I met my husband and we were like living in the city, I told him, I said, I'm just gonna warn you that like the second we move anywhere with a yard, I am getting bees. And so lo and behold, I like held my promise to myself. And the summer after we purchased our house up in Maryland, we have like a super small backyard, and I got a hive. And so it's in our backyard. So just one hive, and you put a bee suit on a couple times a year. You go out, you take care of them, you harvest your honey. But I think the best part is like they're really low maintenance pets. And you like look out your window all day long and you just see them back there like buzzing around. And it's just like a cool thing to just like experience and like put in perspective how amazing nature is.
Yeah, for sure.
And my favorite part is there's like new hatches all the time of like baby bees. And so every now and then you look out and there's like a cloud of bees in front of the hive like flying around. They're not going anywhere. They're just like going up and like down and like little corkscrews, and they're learning to fly. That's like cool. I always like grab a cup of coffee and go out and like watch these cute little like fuzz balls like banging into each other and learning to fly, and they look like little drunk drivers like playing around. So it's just a joy. I truly love it.
Yeah, there's something so special about watching nature, like truly watching nature and just seeing it evolve on its own is just so enlightening to me,
Yeah,
so that's awesome.
And my husband and I go on walks all the time with our kids, in like a double stroller. Obviously, they're not walking yet. Lo and behold, that day will come. And I'm sure they'll go in two totally different directions. But right now, we're doing these very controlled walks with them strapped in a stroller. And it's so neat, like, walking past all of our neighbors' houses, and they all have, like, small gardens or fruit trees. And they're all, like, laden with fruit and vegetables. Yeah. And in my mind, I'm thinking, it's because of my honeybees. Yeah. Sure. So I think it's, like, also a cool, like, just, beautification of, like, the neighborhood thing. Like, I see honeybees everywhere. And I just think, oh, they're probably one of ours, and that's awesome.
Yeah, that's cool. So I have a lot of questions there. First off, if you're just playing with a bee, like, what do you do, like, to play with it? Just put your finger there? Or what?
So honeybees will only sting you if you, like, really deserve it. And so if you, like, have a honeybee, like, walking around in front of you, and so, like, make sure to identify what a honeybee looks like. But if you have one, like, right in front of you, if you put your finger down in front of the honeybee, it will, like, crawl on your finger, and you can just kind of, like, pass it hand to hand or whatever. But, I mean, or if it's, like, on a picnic table and all your friends are scared of bees, like, grab a credit card or something and put it underneath, have the bee crawl on it, and then just, like, blow it off, and it'll just fly away. They're not grudge keepers, honeybees. Like, they'll just fly off and be like, okay, I wasn't one here. So
cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay, so I want to do this already. So if I want to have what do I even call it?
A hive.
A hive.
Yeah,
there
a hive.
Go. If I want to have a hive in my backyard, what do I need to do?
Okay, so look up your local bee association because they have amazing classes for first-time beekeepers.
Oh, all right.
And they're all over the place, and they're the coolest people. Like, you usually, like, I'm going to be super stereotypical here, but, like, usually your senior beekeeper is, like, usually this huge old burly guy with, like, some big beard and just looks like a senior beekeeper. And it's a tribe. And so, yeah, like, meet your, like, local community beekeepers, ask them how to do it. More often than not, they'll literally say, oh my gosh, that's amazing. Like, come out. Like, we're so excited that you're here. Come out to my hive. I'll teach you how to do it. I'll mentor you. Because they're so excited to see young people want to do this.
Yeah.
And also, like, urban beekeeping is a really popular hobby, especially in DC. So many restaurants have beehives up on the tops of their buildings that's or cool. out, like, wherever they source their produce. And so it's really actually something that's pretty common. But yeah, so join association, learn about it. And then you go out to, like, one of the, like, kind of like bee depots, I guess, like these small little stores that are around that have all of the products that you need. You just buy a hive, and then you put in an order for what they call a nuke, which is like a colony, like, nucleus. And it's a box of bees, you guys. And I mean, like, it's literally, like, it's scary for, like, a new-time beekeeper. I mean, it's scary for me too. But, like, it's a wooden box, but there's mesh on both sides of it, so you can see through it. And it literally will have, like, 1,000 bees in this little box. And they just hand it to you, and you're just like
buzzing.
Thanks. What do I do with this? And so there's usually a hole in the side that has like a little stopper in it and has the queen in it. And you take that box and you put it on top of your hive. You pull the stopper out. You put like a mini marshmallow in it, and then you turn it upside down, and the queen will eat out of the mini marshmallow, and like will go into her hive, and all of the bees will follow her, and then you have a full hive, and then you just take care of them.
Jeez.
Yeah.
So what is the maintenance? Like,
okay, so. Yeah, so bees are super self-sufficient. So they build comb on like frames, and so you're giving them like a structure to go off of, but every now and then they don't want to listen to the structure. And so you need to be able to like open up the top of a hive and pull out frames, but they'll do bridge comb so they can bridge the frames because they want to pack as much comb and as much honey in the hive as possible. So what maintenance looks like is like every 3 or 4 months you need to go out and just pull each of the frames out and just clean off the bridge comb to make sure they're kind of building where they're supposed to build. And then you also just check them for health reasons, like make sure there's not beetles or mites. You talk to them, see how they're doing. Like, oh, hey, ladies, like, how's your day? You just make sure that they're like doing well. You always have to make sure they have water, like a water source in your yard. And so like we have a little fountain. Okay. But I mean, if you have sprinklers or like a stream within 2 miles, they're fine.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they fly about 2 miles for all of their food. And then the only other thing is just the hives grow really fast in the spring. And so you have to really stay on top of the growth, because if they fill a box completely up and they don't have another box, they'll swarm. So the hive will literally divide. And so usually in the spring around like May or June, depending on how beautiful our spring has been, you have to put another box on the hive, and then it just keeps getting taller and taller and taller. But that's what they fill up with honey. So the more boxes you can get on your hive, the more honey you're going to end up with. And I mean, we have like 3 boxes on our hive, and I mean, we'll end up with like gallons of honey. Like, it's a lot of honey, guys.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And so yeah, that's what maintenance looks like. So yeah, you just get a big white bee suit, like the hat with like the mesh and everything, and you go out there, and like my husband's like relatively scared of bees, and I mean, I have him out there doing bees with me all the time.
Nice.
Yeah.
My wife, as soon as she hears this, knows we're already going down this path.
Well, come over. I will mentor you. Come over.
Right,
you can do bees with
go.
us. Like even this fall when we like harvest honey, I'll reach out to you guys, and you guys can come up, and we can do like a play date with our girls and everything too. Yeah,
love
there you
that.
go.
Okay, and all right. This is just like
I'll send you home with some honey.
Such an itch.
It's
in
awesome.
My mind.
And it's like I said too, it's nice because it's not like something you have to do all the time. Like I think I go out maybe 5 or 6 times a year max and like take care of the hive. Like they're really low maintenance in that sense.
I really care about my flowers too. So like this will be
They're so great for that.
Yeah. All right. Anyways, well, I just want to keep talking about this, but I'll try to push us in a different direction. Tell us about POPVOX. Like, what is it for those? I'm sure people like have heard of it, but like, what do you guys actually do?
No, thank you for asking that. Yeah, so POPVOX Foundation is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization, and most of us actually are just a bunch of former congressional staffers who are really passionate about just making Congress work better. Yeah. And so, as you were saying at the beginning of the podcast, so my role is Director of Government Innovation. And what we focus on, or what I also like particularly have an interest in, is having government institutions, particularly legislatures, kind of keep pace with how rapidly our world changes, especially in like relation to technology, but also just best practice kind of generally. And so we do a lot of working to kind of showcase the path forward that government institutions can take to ensure continuity and efficiency of operations and keep up with how their constituents want to communicate with governments. And there's a lot of like shared challenges across parliaments across the world. And as other guests on your podcast have stated, there's not really a specific person that owns government innovation inside of legislatures. Yeah. And so what we found at POPVOX was that if we are able to kind of see how there's like creative solutions being either tried or tested, whether they fail or succeed in other legislatures, we can actually, including ours, we can like package those up and spread that knowledge so that hopefully kind of all of democracy will be a little bit stronger because of it. Yeah, and so we've always done like a focus on the U.S. Congress, but a lot of the resources that we've made for the House and the Senate, we actually get a lot of outreach and a lot of interest from legislators around the world for it because, like I said, it's kind of the same challenges being faced by everyone with kind of modern democracy, challenges and threats.
Nice. How big is the team?
It's small. There's like 6 of us.
Cool.
It's super small, small but mighty. And I think one of my favorite parts actually about working for POPVOX was that unlike other think tanks that I think have their like list of things they're going to do over a year and they sit down with like a strategic plan at the beginning of the year, Marcy, who's like our fearless, positive golden retriever of a leader, she's amazing. She's like the do it person, but also such a huge collaborator. She doesn't do that. She actually kind of sees where the needs are, and we adjust to that. And so I always feel like we're working on stuff that's actually really relevant and really timely. It's not like I'm never assigned a project or a focus on something that I'm like, who is the audience or why is this important right now? We're very like go with the flow of kind of like figuring out what the needs are of our audience, which is like legislative staff and legislators, and filling that with what they need.
Very cool. How did you get interested in being a part of this?
The way that I think a lot of people in kind of the congressional legislative modernization space did, I was, so right after college graduation, I came and worked in a freshman member's office. It's Barry Loudermilk from Georgia's 11th District. Shout out to the Loudermilk team. But I was hired as a legislative correspondent, and I remember getting that job and thinking, I don't even know what a legislative correspondent is. And through my years of doing that and being a legislative assistant, I loved the experience, but I was constantly feeling like I was reinventing the wheel that was being reinvented in every single office across. And this was before all the amazing professional development resources were on the Hill. This was like over 10 years ago. And I just remember thinking, like, there must be a better way. And it got me really interested in the institution itself, like from a business perspective, like how the House works internally for its training and its people and its hiring and its retention and like the technology that it uses. And so I was also blessed because Representative Loudermilk worked or was assigned to the Committee on House Administration. So I actually got a taste of what that committee did, and then that beat I just loved. And so that led me to later on become a Committee on House Administration staffer. And then my work on the committee was like focused on modernizing the institution, and one of the big organizations that was on the outside that we were constantly communicating with and that just seemed to be doing the things that I always thought what were most needed was POPVOX. And so when I was ready for that transition off the Hill just to do something different, they were my first call.
Cool.
Yeah.
That was great. I feel like that's not a mindset that's always in the works on the Hill, is like thinking about the Hill from a business perspective. And so what set you up before that to kind of have your mind going that way when you got to the Hill?
I don't actually think. Well, okay, that's a good question. So I think part of it was the adage that the House is like 435 small businesses. Like you hear that all the time, right? And I think that what I came to realize was that because every office operates differently, there's always some flexibility in what you're able to change and run with, but there's not like somebody in the office who's responsible for leading that change. And so if you're going to lead a change or you see something that could be improved upon, it's kind of like above and beyond what your job description is to do that. And I have always loved those challenges. I find a lot of fulfillment from doing those things that are like above and beyond that I think will like make it better for the person behind me. Like I remember being so frustrated with our CMS system at the time, and I mean, once again, this was like a decade ago, and so like if they're rough now, they were really rough a decade ago.
Probably haven't been updated since then.
Right, exactly. And I think I specifically remember being like, this is so hard, and it doesn't need to be this hard. Like this technology should be better. Here we are on social media. Look how easy social and intuitive social media is. Why is this so challenging? And I remember talking to our like LD at the time, and they're just like, that's just how like being an LC works. Like you just pay your dues and you get through it. And I thought, I get that, because like you're locked into a CMS system. There's a small market on the Hill. Like I do get that. And that is like how you have to do your job. But there was never like that moment where I just kind of accepted that. Instead, I was always like, how for the next LC can we make this better? Because that LC then can spend their time actually, focusing more on like the letters quality versus batching mail for hours.
Sure.
And so it's just more of like where you can spend your time. So long story short, with the business operations like aspect, it's kind of just like those daily operations. When people think of Congress, they just think of the politics, but like you walk through the House office buildings and they're business buildings. Like there's work happening there. And so it's like that aspect of the Hill that I just like, it makes me tick. Like I just love thinking about how it can be better.
If you could solve one problem or like one big project that you could do to just make the Hill work so much better, what would it be?
Oh my gosh.
It's a huge question, so apologies, but.
No, that's a huge question. I honestly think what I would do is, there's like, I think the problem I would love to solve is figuring out how to like have there be better technology, but by inspiring staff and even members to come up with their own technology solutions and ideas. When I was on the Committee on House Administration, I was lucky enough to go on a staff del, and we went over to the UK, and we were learning about how they actually have like an innovation award where they have staff who, if like as a hobby you're like a coder or you want to design software, that you can actually like compete in like this like off like the side competition to come up with these ideas of new tools that could be introduced to make the legislature work better. And whoever wins, you end up like getting to have official resources to continue to develop your app, and then it's brought on by the institution, and then you get like an award of like a couple $1,000 or something. And I thought, how
what
cool.
an idea that would be.
Well, like imagine being like a staff assistant, right? If you're like a staff assistant who like just got their undergrad degree, who likes like tech, if you could actually have that kind of opportunity to make the institution better, like the buy-in that you would get from young staffers, it'd be the coolest thing. So I think somehow figuring out how like staff and members can like beta test new tech would just like create like a whole marketplace of innovation on the Hill that I think would like blow our minds.
I think that was so frustrating for me when I started Connect, was no one was willing to help. You know, it was just like, okay, I guess I got to go figure this out on my own. And
now 3 years later, like look what you built, right?
Yeah.
And I think that lesson learned though, like that's so inspirational because you still did it, and like now you can look back and I mean you're having these conversations, but now you can look back and say this is how we did it. So like let's mentor the next people who have these innovative ideas to hold these conversations and lead these networking events and bring up the people behind you. So I mean you did it. Like that's amazing.
So all right. I'm a little I'm overall like an eternal optimist, but I'm a little pessimistic about the idea of like there are a lot of people on the Hill who like want to go the business and innovation route. Like sometimes in my mind, I think that a lot of people on the Hill aren't like interested in entrepreneurship or innovation, at least like from data we have on like certain questions we've asked in polls or on like certain podcast topics where we dive more into that. It doesn't seem like that usually like scratches an itch for our readers or users. So sometimes I get worried that like people are cool with like the way it is.
Okay. I got. Okay. Yeah. So, so I completely agree that there are definitely some people on the Hill who they like the system, right? And not only they like the system, but when they're told by their upper management that this is just how things are going to be, they don't push up against that. And like I have this poster in my office that says like, "Don't be a donkey and don't be don't be a donkey and don't be an elephant, be a unicorn." And the idea is that like not everyone can be a unicorn. Like you can't have like an entire office full of innovators, and you shouldn't. I think that it's at the point like
be a little chaotic.
Well, and then you also like you have to get the job done in the reality you're sitting in, right? But that being said, if you are somebody who you have that itch where you see a solution that could make something more efficient or better, and it can be small, that's something that you should run with, especially if you find fulfillment out of it. And know that there's like a whole community of these kind of congressional modernization nerds that are like here to support you in that. But like it does, like just like how every issue set on the Hill has like their community of nerds who are super passionate about it. Like my favorite example is I don't know who loves doing tax policy, but like if you know that you love doing tax policy, like that's amazing for you, and like we need you. That's the same thing with like congressional modernizers. Like I'm sure there's a lot of people who are like, why do you care? It's chaos up there all the time. Most of it is like never how it's supposed to be. It's all like an aversion to the rules. Like just go make your difference, try to get through it, and like move on with your boss. For the people who are like, no, like I want to figure out the next CMS system. Like, I'm sure people are like, well, you are crazy, but we're also just like, that's what we do.
So for the staffer that has an idea who wants to keep working on the Hill, do their thing, but also fix an issue, what steps should they take to make that happen?
Oh, I love this question. There's a couple different options. And so the first one is, it really depends on the scope of your idea, right? But you have to figure out kind of the institutional office who owns it. Most in the House side, for example, which I'm a House girl, in the House side, a lot of the kind of business operations of the House fall under the Chief Administrative Officer. And if it's like a tech-related idea, the most like tech innovation that's happening on the House side is with the House Digital Service, which which is like an incredible team. You should just grab coffee with somebody at HDS regardless, because they're the best people. And so just coming up with like a pitch of what you're looking for and why for your idea, and then going and talking to somebody about like, hey, like what are the steps forward if I were to try to do this? That's a really good start. Another option is to like look at some of the modernization caucuses. There's like the Modernization Staff Association. You know, go and network other people who have these ideas, and if you can get a bunch of staff together who have an idea, there's like weight behind that to pitch it. Go talk to the staff on the Committee on House Administration and say like, hey, I noticed this like thing that could be better if it's kind of like an enterprise-wide option. But like if you're a legislative correspondent, which as you can see, LCs are so close to my heart. Like it's in the weeds, it's the trenches. But like if you're an LC and you're like, wow, I feel like we do a really poor job of like saving our form letters, and I'm always feeling like I have to rewrite or find them. Like be the innovator in your office to say we should set up like a SharePoint, or we should set up like a shared drive, and I can like spend 5 hours during one of my day and just organize these in like a folder system that is intuitive and makes sense. And even that is modernizing. Like that's setting in place a new system. It doesn't have to be
creating a new software.
No, it can be something small, but then like once you did it, if it starts working, like document that and then like pass that on as a best practice. Like I said, like join the Modernization Staff Association and like, you know, ask if you can like present on like how you made being an LC better in your office. Like that is innovation and modernizing.
It's the beauty of Congress in our system that like everything is so separate and unique in each office, but it's also the most frustrating thing ever because then best practices don't get shared.
And there's like the turnover problem too, especially in the House, where even if you have like some incredible staffer who like figured it out, you know, if their member loses their next election, that staffer's out, and then you have a new LC serving that district, or a new staff assistant or LA serving that district, who now suddenly isn't responding to constituents as quickly just because they just don't have the same system in place, because it wasn't handed down in like a briefing binder that's like, hey, here's how we ran things. And I think that like loss of institutional knowledge, of just know-how, that's really detrimental to our Congress.
Yeah. I do that a lot myself, of like, I have it all in my head, you know, like I've got the whole plan here.
You are the problem. You need to put that down on paper.
Yeah, for sure. I know. But it's like, it's hard, you know, you're so busy, especially on the Hill. It's like, there's not a lot of times to just sit there and take a couple hours to write out a process. And then August comes and it's like, oh, that's the perfect time. But like, I'm so burnt out from the rest of the year that I don't really feel like doing that right now, you know? And so it's a vicious cycle.
Yeah, I will say that finding the time to do something above and beyond your regular job is so challenging when it comes to the space, and that that is one of the biggest challenges, is that I think Hill staff are just so just pushed to their limits with their capacity. But this is also where I can like pitch, like maybe this is an idea where you can do a quick draft and then have use AI, like use a commercial GPT to then like help you actually pull that into a proposal, or have you brainstorm more on that particular solution, and it can do some of the writing assistance for you to get it out of the door faster.
So how do you think an everyday staffer, we can start with LCs, could use ChatGPT or other platforms like it?
Yeah, so a lot of my work over the last 2 years at POPVOX Foundation has been focusing on how legislative institutions can start using generative AI. And I think, I was really stars aligned, and I was really excited to be on the Committee on House Administration when the first version of ChatGPT was kind of commercially available. And I don't know if you remember that time. It was kind of like this crazy boom and bust of like, oh my gosh, it's here. This is crazy. It's going to change our entire world. And then it kind of like plateaued, and now we're in 2025, and it's still like adoption of it is still mixed, right? And so over the last 2 years, I've really been focused on putting on my legislative hat, or my congressional staff hat, and thinking about how these tools can be responsibly and safely used to help the capacity problem on the Hill. When I first started playing around with some of these tools, I was like blown away with how much time they could save, which is like the mundane processes. And once again, like going back to that idea about, batching mail versus actually spending time writing letters, if you, across any, position of staff in a congressional office, if you are able to, save staff an hour or two on like the mundane, low risk tasks, by putting an AI tool in your workflow, those are 2 hours that staffer can spend doing something that's really constituent facing or really important with like their actual expertise, right?
Sure.
And so it's just like it's like how you want to use your resources. And so back to your question about like how staffers can use it safely, the first tip is to absolutely go and check your institutional guidance. The House and Senate have both put out different rules about which tools can be used and how they can be used, and they update them really regularly. And so go to House Information Resources if you're a House staffer, Senate Sergeant Arms' website if you're a Senate staffer, and like get to know those resources. And even though those are your institutional like guidance, you then obviously have to go to like your chief and make sure that you know your office's like policies. And then from there, depending on what your kind of guidelines are and your lines are with like appropriate use and unsafe use. From there, I would say my favorite prompt for staffers to put in is literally like, I'm a legislative correspondent that works on Capitol Hill in a U.S. House of Representative office. What are 10 ways that you can help me with my job?
Yeah.
And have it actually train you a little bit on what's possible. Yeah. And then from there, I think the biggest tip for learning how to use these tools is to use them. Like, unless you actually get used to writing a prompt and figure out and test what it could be helpful for, you're never going to know. And so I always like to have like my regular window open of whatever I'm working on, and have, whether it's Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini, whatever's approved, have that in the second window. And whenever I have a question or something I'm working on, I always think, let me just see how this could help me. Yeah. And I go into the LLM and ask, and say, hey, this is what I'm working on. Like, how can you help me? And then, I have a conversation with that program about no, that's not quite what I want. Like, can we try again? And so forth. And so that's how you just get familiar with it.
I mean, anyone who's not using it, you're kind of wasting your own time, right?
You are, but I also understand it's really intimidating at the same time. Yeah. And I think we're past I actually just had this conversation with my boss recently. It was really interesting because a year ago we were doing some staff training. So we put out a lot of resources on best practices for using these tools, and we do some staff training, on-demand training. Of just hey, here's 101. How does Claude compare to ChatGPT? How do you do a prompt? How can it be used by a legislator versus a staffer? And so we do a lot of these 101 trainings. And a year ago, when we were doing these trainings to congressional staff, we'd have a lot of staff that say I'm pretty unfamiliar with AI, haven't really pulled it up, don't really know a whole lot about it, and I would ask really basic questions. Now it's a totally different dynamic where it seems like everyone has an opinion on it. Yeah. And so we have this huge variety of staff. There's staff who are very open to innovating and very open to trying it because they use it in their personal life a ton, and they're really comfortable with it and see the possibility of how much time it could save. But we also have staff that have never been on it, and then for a variety of very valid reasons, whether it be the environment or copyright concerns, or just concerns with big tech in general, that they won't touch it. Yeah. And I think that there's actually a mix in the middle. I think that you're right. I think AI is here to stay, and I do think it's a huge time saver. And I think that the realization that everyone, or not everyone, but eventually everyone in the private sector will be using it. Lobbyists are going to be using it. Think tanks are going to be using it. Constituent groups are going to be using it to contact you. If Congress isn't equipped with the same tools, we're just going to be outrun way more than we have been to begin with. And so you kind of have to make sure that you're setting up the institution to be ready to just combat the kind of onslaught of information and correspondence that's going to come from the outside using these tools. And if you don't have them on the inside, I think, like I said, you're just going to be overrun.
Yeah. It's a former press staffer who had to write talking points and briefing documents.
And then boil those down to tweets and boil them down to Instagram posts and boil them down to newsletters and email colleagues and everything else. Yeah.
It's I didn't even think about that. Yeah, there's so many ways in which you have this approved copy, or the hardest part was always okay, first let's break down this article for a TV hit coming up. I could have saved so much time there of just putting it into chat and then refining from there. But then the whole adding quips at the bottom of all right, what are some good lines that my boss could say to bounce off of this? I didn't have those in my head, so it would have been perfect to ask chat. I love asking chat for quips because it's all right, these suck, give me more, and you just keep going and refining. But on top of that, hey, my boss just put this out, here's a transcript, give me some tweets based off of this. Yeah. Could have saved myself a lot of time.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, there's a lot of hesitation out there, and very valid hesitation about using these tools for content creation, for a lot of reasons. I mean, obviously the hallucinations are a big thing, but then there's also just like the fact that there's no way that these commercially available tools know the complete context of what your boss is doing or said, or the complete context of what the hearing was about, or your motivations for going into that hearing, right? And so that's why I think when I'm talking to staff about how to combat some of those hesitations and overcome some of those particular challenges with using these tools, my number one thing is that we always say to approach using one of these generative AI tools as you would approach giving jobs to a day one intern in your office. You're not going to 100% trust them. It's their first day. You're going to absolutely double check all their work. You're going to assume that they don't know everything that your boss has said. But just having the intern that would have, read through that transcript and pulled you out some quotes, that is something that an LLM could help you with in very short order, and pull out those quotes, but you're going to have to double check them. And so that's always like a good, just like, mental kind of way to categorize what is low risk enough for an LLM to help with is what you would give a day one intern that doesn't have like a legal background or anything. Yeah.
And I think the other side of it too is you have to communicate and contextualize. And so I feel like a lot of people use chat and go, oh, it doesn't work that well. It's like, well, you're not communicating with it or giving it the right information to give you proper feedback, right? And so I think even learning how to communicate is such an important part of that. And so I know you guys have a ton of resources for how staff can better utilize it. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think that that's such a good example that you give. One of the stories I've heard more than once, which makes my heart hurt, is the staffer, the member who will say, oh, I hopped on to, name your LLM, 2 years ago, and I put in a question and it lied to me, and so I'll never use one again. And it's like the technology where it is now is so different than where it was 2 years ago or even 6 months ago. Like these tools are getting a lot more advanced and a lot better at understanding a variety of prompts. But prompt creation is definitely a skill, and you need to practice. It's like a muscle. Like you need to understand how to communicate with these different LLMs. And the other thing is each large language model has its own kind of personality too. Like I ask a prompt differently to Claude, and I use Claude for different things than I would ChatGPT, because they really do have different personalities. And the coolest way,
panders so much.
Yeah,
just panders to you all the time.
And the bullet points, it's like death by bullet point.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's to learn their personalities. It's fun to pull up Gemini and Claude and ChatGPT in 3 different windows and put the exact same prompt in all 3 and see how it gives you a response. And so I find Claude to be friendlier. He's kind of happy and chipper all the time and very supportive. But like you said, I find that ChatGPT is pandering, right? And so they just, like I said, they just have different personalities, and understanding the prompt generation for each one is something that is helpful. But like you said, you need to learn it. And if you are using a tool and it doesn't give you the answer you want, it's not like a Google search. You don't just put in another search. It's a conversation you're having. And so if it doesn't give you what you want, say, no, that's not what I want. I want this. And without fail, be like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Here you go. And then keep telling you what you want. And through that process, you'll learn how to do better prompt creation at the beginning. And then once you have kind of a set prompt understanding, that process of creating this prompt just goes so much faster. Like I said, it's a muscle.
Yeah. I think that's why I'd never use Google anymore unless I'm I want to go to MLB's website. I always use these LLMs because it feels so unintuitive or counterintuitive, I don't know what the right word is, but to search one question in Google and then have to go back in and try to refine your search. It's no, let's just have a conversation about this, and find that so accessible.
Well, also there's the extra steps on Google too now, where you put in your Google search and then you have to click your links to find it. But then again, I will say, they have the AI summary now at the top of Google, but I actually find that that's never quite right? And so that's where I always we'll end up clicking on links anyway. But yeah, I think that for staffers who have an innovative spirit and are curious about these tools, even if your office isn't there yet and hasn't approved use, or your chief is really uncomfortable with it, your member's really uncomfortable with it, in your free time at home, like make a personal account and use it in your personal life. Like I know we have the worst time with our dog barking, and like I have definitely asked it for advice on how to get my dog to not bark. I've had a really like difficult time being creative on like coming up with like new solids to give my kids, because the solid phase is intimidating and so terrifying because they have no teeth and they're like trying to munch on things. And so like I've gone to ChatGPT and asked for recipes of like really simple foods that I can give, and bulk prep for kids for introducing them to solids. And so, our restaurant recommendations,
planning trips.
Yeah, there's so many uses, but like once again, like just have a goal. Like if you're not used to using these tools, you're not going to like suddenly just use them. And so make a goal, like twice a day, I'm going to put like a prompt into a ChatGPT or a Claude. I'm going to start figuring out how to use these, and that will show you and like kind of open up your understanding to what's possible in a work setting.
So what is POPVOX offering to help staffers with this?
Yeah, so a couple different things. So like I said, we offer trainings all the time. And so we do in-person trainings for offices. And so if your office wants like a really great 101 course on like what these tools can do, some examples, also just like the opportunity to ask the dumb questions. Yeah. We come in, we'll, depending on what chamber you're in, we'll do our best to like adhere with the guidance that we know. None of the guidance is actually posted publicly, so we can't actually see it. But if you're able to show us what the guidance is, we'll stay within it 100%. We're going off of what we know. But so yeah, the in-person training, and then we do virtual training that's on demand that you can find on our YouTube page, and then we do a lot of resources. And so my favorite thing is when I have like a chief of staff or a staffer reach out and say like, I don't understand what deep research is. Deep research is now an option on all these GPTs. What is deep research, and when would I use deep research versus just like a regular prompt query? And so like we recently put out a one-pager on like, this is what you would use deep research for, and this is what you would use a regular query for, and this is why they're different, and like this is how that works. And so that's a really good example. So if there's like a question that you just can't figure out on the tech, and you want like a nonpartisan, non-techie background of it, like a really good use case with a congressional staffer's perspective, that's the kind of resources we create. Cool. My favorite resource that we've done by far was that this last summer, so summer 25, we actually did something called AI Summer Camp. Going back to your comment about how August recess is when you're like, oh, I'm going to do some professional development during August recess, and recognizing that's usually when staff will try to kind of like spend some time catching up on things.
Or watch Netflix.
Which is so deserved. That's the thing, is like watch your Netflix. You guys need it. But we had talked to a lot of staffers who said, I just haven't had the time to learn AI. Yeah. And when in August recess, I'll try to take the time to finally sit down and like figure out what this technology is. And so to kind of fill that gap, we put out this program, and it was self-led, and so it wasn't like an actual like in-person summer camp, although I would have loved that. Yeah. It was actually just we put out 5 different types of use cases, and then we gave sample problems for every type of congressional staffer under that use case. So for example, the first one was like brainstorming. And so we showed how everyone from a staff assistant through the member, scheduler included, district director, field rep, DC office, district-based office, how everyone could use it for brainstorming for their job. And then we did that for across like 5 different use cases. And so that was my favorite one, because it was like happy, like it was fun and unintimidating and just like helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, going to go in a different direction as we wrap up, but I want to make sure we mention this. Your time at House Administration, you were able to help a lot with new member orientation.
Oh, yes.
And that's something I, like, as a staffer now, I'm always curious about, like, what happens during that process? Like, what are staffers learning? So could you give us just, like, a peek into that world?
Absolutely. So I was so lucky to work on the Committee on House Administration. It was, like, the job of a lifetime. I know over the course of your podcast, you've had a couple of House admin, former and current staffers on, and the committee is amazing because, the House of Representatives is like a member-run institution, and the Committee on House Administration is where members directly get to decide how they want the institution to run from the inside out. Yeah. And most Americans will never know that a Committee on House Administration exists, and that's actually kind of the beauty of it, is that it really is like the member investment in how the House works. And so part of that jurisdiction of House admin is onboarding the new members at the beginning of every Congress. And so it's called New Member Orientation, so it's NMO. And I was able to be part of 2 of them, the one for the 117th freshman class and the one for the 118th freshman class. And so new member orientation is like a combination of like vibes of like first day of school plus campaign trail plus Veep a little bit. Like it's chaos. But so we're gonna pretend like you run for Congress. You run for Congress, which is, obviously Tuesday's election day, you will usually get a call from a House admin staffer to your personal phone on like Wednesday. And that is like a staffer calling and saying, congratulations on your election. As a member-elect, we are so excited that on behalf of the chair and ranker of House Administration Committee, we are going to invite you to new member orientation. It's a mandatory orientation course, and it starts on Monday. And so between election night and that Monday, House admin staffers on both sides of the aisle, it's a total bipartisan event. They contact every single member-elect and get them on a plane with plane tickets to DC by that next week. And so that alone is like whiplash. And I feel so bad for these new members because most of them are like sick because they're coming off the campaign trail. They're on like such a high. And then suddenly it's like Congress hits them. And so they get flown in. And the 2 years that I helped out with it, it was a 2-week program kind of straddling the week of Thanksgiving. So it takes place in the fall prior to the beginning of a new Congress. And it's here in DC. And so you fly a member in, they get 2 staffers that they get to bring on board to help them. And it's just a crash course on how to be a member of Congress. It's super bipartisan, and there's been a huge emphasis on even making it more bipartisan. But it's everything from being introduced to all the institutional offices. Most of some member elects, it's their very first time ever being in DC, and so it's like showing them how the office buildings work. Making sure they get their member pin and their signatures figured out. Learning how the House floor works. The best part is the room lottery. There's like this huge, it's almost like a draft of them figuring out the room they're going to be in, and that is like a hoot, and people get really into it.
I'm sure the former staffers like have the edge there, like, oh, I know, like don't go Camden 5th floor back in the day.
100%. And then also, once again, like it's just chaos. Like you have all these members who like are roaming around the different office buildings trying to get they try to go into the offices to see what they want, and then from there they have to make all the decisions about how they want it painted and decorated and set up, and then at the same time they're also doing interviews for their first staff because it's a crazy turnaround time. You win that election in November, and then you are open for business on January 3rd. And so everything that you have to know about being a member of Congress is in that time. And I think that as congressional staff that are DC based, a lot of us take it for granted about the ins and outs of DC. But if you're a new member, a lot of these member elects have never worked in their state legislature. A lot of them are parents or doctors or lawyers or teachers or business owners. Some of them are just parents and they come from just a huge variety of backgrounds, and suddenly they find themselves as a representative in the U.S. House, and you don't know all that takes until you're in it. And so it's a whirlwind. But it's completely ran. NMO is completely ran by the House admin staff. Like I said, both the Democrat and Republican Party staffers, and then like a host of volunteers. But a huge heavy lift of it is also done by the institutional staff. So staff in the clerk's office, the CAO, the Sergeant at Arms, U.S. Capitol Police, things like that. So
very cool.
It's a whirlwind.
All right, before we wrap up, what else do you want people to know about you?
The very first thing that comes to mind is just like I can't tell you how much when I look back over my time in DC that I can't believe the people I've met and how incredible everyone is. And so I think if anyone were to know anything about me, it's like, just please come get to know me. Like find me. Like I want to meet you. And like I think that like podcasts like yours, I find them like addicting because it is so fun to see the people behind these roles and these titles, right? Yeah. And I think that House admin in particular was such an incredible role that I loved being in on that committee because I got to meet like the thousands of people behind the scenes of how the House works. And I just am like amazed with like where people come from and like what they do and their like special interests, and people are incredible and so interesting. And so, I think that like one of the reasons why, going back to the beginning of the podcast, when you asked me, where I would live, I think one of the other like anchors that's like kept me here is just that there's so many people here and you're always meeting somebody new. Yeah. And so, I'd say that like, if you want to like learn bees and also be my friend, like email me. And
what are some other connection points? Like I love baseball, this like football, like what are those things that people can go, oh, that's how I can reach out and be like, we have this in common?
I'm a huge coffee addict.
There you
That's a big one. I know that's like an addiction that is very strong here in DC. My husband and I and our friends, every Thursday night, we are at Silly Yak Brewery up in Olney, Maryland, which is a hike. But we do trivia on Thursday nights, and that was like our thing. Once we had our kids, once they hit like 3 months, we were like, we need to get out of this house. And so we started doing trivia. We're usually the only party there, so we're pretty undefeated, actually. We beat the bartender pretty often, but like come do trivia with us, come beat us. So that's a big one. And then, I'd say like anyone who, like I said, wants to do bees or just like, I don't know, just wants to like talk about Congress. I'm such a nerd with that stuff, and I love it. And so, anyone who wants to be like a congressional institutional nerd, I'd say, those are big things to bond over. So we can be in bee suits, drinking coffee, talking about Congress with twins running around, and we can have a beer on the side.
There you go. Good stuff. Sounds like a good day to me.
Right.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. This was great.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Thank you for tuning into Capital Spotlight Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to subscribe to our channels to stay updated on new releases, share the show with your friends, and rate the show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. For more from Connect, subscribe to our daily newsletters, follow us on social media, and check out our website, all at Capital Connect, capital with an O, CNCT. See you next time.